It's over. The Acolyte has concluded its 8 episodes, and boy, do I have a lot to say. So kick back as I give you my best take and overall review of The Acolyte. This show was a strange experience for me, as I'm sure it was for many Star Wars fans. I've been a lifelong fan of this universe and have experienced ups and downs throughout my time. But nothing has ever quite bothered me more than this experience, and I don't just mean in the sense of watching this show, I mean the entire Acolyte moment. From the announcement, to the trailers, its marketing, the interviews, and of course, the social media discourse. And the fans have spoken as loud as they could with this one, and the census, to put it kindly, is that this is not what we want. The first sign of this disaster was the teaser trailer, which had a staggering amount of dislikes to likes, not to mention comments filled with strong opinions and criticism. Whether preemptive or not, people spoke their feelings on what they saw. The next indicator was the lack of care and understanding for Star Wars presented by the cast and showrunner, which is not surprising considering some of them have never even seen Star Wars. And finally, post after post on social media littered with comments calling for resignations, Acolyte cancellation, for George Lucas to return, and fans pleading to Lucasfilm to never make something so atrocious again. And if you don't believe me, check out any one of the Acolyte posts on all the big platforms. People are not happy. The audience scores on sites such as Rotten Tomatoes reflects the fans' overall opinion of this latest Star Wars installment, despite what some would call review bombing, which I believe is a term used to deflect from valid criticism, an attempt to discredit all negative feedback as something that isn't substantial. My own personal experience with my small little channel were weekly community polls that showed low ratings episode by episode, not to mention the impassioned comments. My previous reviews of the beginning and middle points of this season were riddled with people that agreed with my points of criticism, or those who agreed but still enjoyed certain aspects of what they watched. However, there were the occasional fan who would call me a hater or say that I'm stupid for not liking this show, which is a crazy statement considering that I myself never once proclaimed that anyone who liked this show was an idiot. In fact, I often engaged and tried to see from their point of view. But then again, more and more people can't fathom hearing someone dislike something they love, so I digress. But these are my experiences of watching the show and engaging in the social media side of things. What is my actual review of the series? Maybe I should discuss what I liked first. The premise of a show about twins gifted with the Force, while derivative, isn't a bad start. Sure, we have seen twins before, most famously in Luke and Leia. However, I suppose that example is different, with one being a Jedi and the other a rebellion leader. But stories and legends have also gifted us with Force-sensitive twins, and they are definitely more worthy of your time than those presented in The Acolyte. Now, I was curious how this story would differentiate its Force-sensitive twins, only to soon realize that they were going down the route of having a good one and a bad one. Granted, they switched places by the end, but that was itself uninspired and rather disappointing, if not downright lazy and confusing. But I'm not trying to criticize the show yet, that'll come soon, so let's refocus for now. I like the idea of a story involving Jedi and the Sith. Jedi are one of the coolest aspects of Star Wars and a key creation that led to its overall success. The Sith are the other side of that coin, showing the potential of what happens when a Jedi or Force user turns to selfish desires and wickedness. How these two ideologies differ is key to the mythology of Star Wars. Plot-wise, a murder mystery involving dead Jedi Masters and a cunning assassin is a good start. Throw in a Jedi trying to investigate the murders and you have more than enough to build your foundation. But this is where my positives come to an end, because the truth is the idea of what this show could have been is far more interesting and exciting than what we ended up with. The final product was a sad attempt at anything comparable or worthy of the title Star Wars. The writers attempt to paint the Jedi as villains, putting them in situations where their actions are not only justified but noble. The defense of children from a cult of witches dabbling in dark Force magic is not only the right thing to do, but the honorable thing. The big mystery of what did the Jedi do to cause May to assassinate them one by one was not a fault of the Jedi alone, but a lack of communication and plain incompetence from both parties. And that's the main issue with the Jedi. They are portrayed as utterly incompetent, stupid, and deceitful, traits they have never exemplified once. In fact, the greatest flaw of the Jedi is complacency and misplaced faith in a corrupt political system. The Jedi of the High Republic, while touted as being at their peak of power, is a weak order of Jedi, the weakest there has ever been. Jedi Masters lack any mastery of the Force, Jedi Knights are belittled by Padawans, and Padawans are presented as ferocious warriors while also being wise beyond their years. On the other side, the Sith is far from anything I would ever consider threatening. What made Darth Vader so intimidating was his appearance, jet black armor and a face of death, not to mention the fact that he is a literal unstoppable force. Darth Sidious was simply pure evil, a darkness of untold power who was always 10 steps ahead of his adversaries, constantly manipulating events to draw you into his hands. What is the stranger? What makes him so terrifying? A Sith presence should feel like swimming with a great white shark, knowing at any moment your life could be ended or severely altered. The stranger brings none of this terror, none of this darkness. Instead, we have a villain who is more edgy and cringy than anything else. Mind you, this is no fault of the actor, who is simply provided with the material he is given. His performance is more compelling than 90% of the cast, including the main characters. Speaking of main characters, Osha and May, there's nothing there. From the writing, their individual character arcs, down to the performance. These characters not only don't work on screen, they don't connect with fans, and that is beyond apparent. Osha and May have just about zero substance, showing off personal morality as thin as a strand of hair, or should I say thread of hair. The conclusion of their story in this first and hopefully only season provided nothing throughout that gave the audience any indication as to why they would shift positions or why they would reunite in such a positive way. The writing in this show lacks any sense of motivation or logic. Characters are pushed from one scene to the next in service of a plot that barely exists. Characters are written to have zero real substantial emotion. Every one of these characters is different episode by episode with no reasonable explanation as to why. It's as if the writers forgot who they were. The internal consistency of abilities is non-existent. One moment a Jedi can read minds, the next moment they forget they can because it would reveal information before the plot wants it to. One minute they need a tracker to find another Jedi, the next they reach out with the Force and find them. Force powers are not even considered when engaging in combat, yet they manifest to provide the audience with spectacle and to remind us that these characters are Force users. The actual choreography, while regularly praised as being the only good thing about this show, is in reality so uninspired and boring that there will be zero lasting impact beyond its current run. I can't imagine a world in which fans go out of their way to look up these fights and genuinely enjoy them. The fights and duels that have everlasting impacts on us as people are both emotional and awe-inspiring, two things that seem not to exist within any portion of the Acolyte. This story, this show, is something that I wish had never been made, and I cannot believe I have to say that. I cannot believe we have gotten to such a point of apathy within Star Wars that they are willing to blow over $180 million on such an ill-conceived piece of television. Maybe this was an experiment. Maybe it wasn't what they hoped for. Maybe they thought they were really cooking. Regardless, it failed to capture the audience of Star Wars fans, and more importantly, it's failed to bring in new Star Wars fans. The Acolyte is beyond disappointing. It is infuriating. It is the quintessential essence of what storytelling should not be. It celebrates such an utter lack of care for the art that is storytelling and Star Wars that I cannot believe it exists. The showrunner and writers should feel ashamed at what they put out. Such disrespect and lack of care towards a property, a fictional universe beloved by millions of people, cannot happen again, or I fear the death of Star Wars will be fulfilled. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I didn't go too far into the dark side on that one, but I really needed to get it off my chest. And truthfully, I feel better having said that, and hopefully it resonated with some of you. I believe we all have a right to our opinions and criticisms. I believe that whether you hated or love this show, that's your right as an individual. Just be respectful to those you may disagree with. Lastly, before I go, you may have noticed that I didn't bring up Plagueis or Yoda. That's because to me they were shameless cameos that provided zero substance to the story at hand, and their appearance only worked to damage them as characters. Anyways, that's all I got. Blast a like on this video if you agree, and comment down below with your own thoughts and criticism. Have an amazing day or night wherever you are in the galaxy, and may the Force be with you.